Hello and welcome back to our Peace of Mind podcast at Health Assured. My name's Sofia Feghali and I'm one of the lead counsellors at Health Assured. Today our topic is talking about mental health. We're going to be talking about the importance of mental health, the benefits it can bring for our lives, and of course looking at ways for you to feel more open and confident in talking about this area. I know that it can be a struggle for a lot of people to talk about, but I think that the more we talk about mental health, the easier it gets. So to join me in this discussion today, I'm excited to be here with one of our wellbeing counsellors, Libby.
Hi, good morning. Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Libby, for coming down today. And first of all, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit to people that might have not watched your other videos with us before?
Absolutely. So I've been at Health Assured for around 8 months. Mm-hmm. The reason why I joined is because I think, to touch on the topic of today, it is important to talk about mental health, but in order to do so, we have to have a space of somebody to be able to listen and support you. So that's why I enter the career of counsellor, and I thought being on a helpline, helping others, and having that line of support. So that's what led me to be here.
No, lovely, Libby, and it's great that it was something that you noticed and you wanted to come into this field to actually help people open up and have that conversation and to feel safe with someone that they're talking to, which is why therapy can be great for that. And I guess to start with, the World Health Organization have estimated that 970 million people across the world struggle with their mental health. And I think we know that everyone that's listened has probably struggled with their mental health at some point in your life. 1 in 4 people struggle in the UK. So we know how much of an issue this is worldwide, and yet we still struggle to talk about it. We struggle to be open with it. Yeah. And from your work being as a counsellor and from what you know, why would you say that there's still difficulties people have in talking about their mental health?
Well, it's a tricky one, I think, talking about your mental health. I think it's something that you can't see or justify or explain fully, I think, sometimes. And unfortunately, I think our society has made us be that way.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you had, an injury and, an accident and you had to be off work to recover to, let's say you've broken a bone and you had to heal that bone. I think people would think, okay, that's, natural. It's normal. You're going to take that time off, and nobody would sort of question it. Mm-hmm. But if you were to say, I'm having some time off or having to excuse myself because I'm not feeling well emotionally, I think people don't quite understand that. And it becomes sort of hard for us to be able to be vulnerable and express those feelings when you feel like it's not a safe space to do so. And I think society has been built that way, unfortunately, or, from my experience anyway, that's how I see it. The more you are given negative feedback about something, you're less likely to do it. And I think that's what happens when we touch on the topic of talking about our mental health. Mm-hmm. We all have it, good or bad. Mental health exists, just like our physical health. We should be, able to talk about it openly, because the more you talk, the more you know about it, the easier it is for you to manage and carry things or resolve things ultimately as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're completely right. And I liked what you said then about the physical illness. Right, if we've broken our leg or we have any sort of physical difficulty that we're going through, we don't treat it in the same way we treat our mental health. Right, we take time off work if I just use the broken leg as an example. We take time off work so that our leg can heal. If we're struggling with depression or anxiety, we can force ourselves to go into work. We don't view it as the same thing just because it's something that's not visible. And I think you're right in saying that as a society, we've created a lot of stigma around mental health and talking about it to the point where people literally don't feel like they can talk about it or they don't feel safe to.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think, often at times, for example, generally speaking, if you don't mind me touching a bit on stereotypes.
Yeah.
Generally, as a society, as a whole, for example, if a male is going through a difficult time, We're told, man up, or, carry on with your life. Like, don't show your emotions. You have to be strong. You have to portray that. So in that instance, just picture yourself as growing up with that narrative. Once you become an adult, if that's all that you've sort of heard throughout your life, you're more than likely going to carry out those behaviors, what you've been taught. So then when we come to a space where we are struggling with our mental health and, there's an internal struggle, no matter how big or little it is, it becomes overwhelming to think that you can't express it, to think you can't touch on the topic or talk about it. And essentially, as human beings, we need that space to process. And sometimes it's a lot easier to process that out loud, bouncing it back with someone else, than keep it internally. And the more we internalize it, the more we sort of repress those feelings, it creates like a disconnect with, our mind, our body, and ourselves. So I think my point there, sorry for going off on a tangent, my point there is that I think we need to break a bit of that stigma, not only for males, just in general, that stigma about being able to talk about out loud about your feelings, how things are going for you, because mental health exists. It's here. We all have it. So it's okay to nurture it. It's okay to learn more about it, to exercise that, just as we exercise our physical health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that was such a good point you made there, in that if we are repressing our emotions, when you feel like you want to talk about your mental health, but it's like there's something stuck in your throat, I can't get it out. And as you said, it might be because you've internalized certain beliefs about negative stereotypes. So like you were saying, I think anyone can. I think if you've opened up about your mental health in the past and you haven't had a negative experience doing that, let's say the person you were talking to wasn't very supportive or wasn't very trustworthy, you had a bad experience. We all know that there's a lot of shame around men's mental health, cultural as well. In certain cultures, it's just not apparent to talk about your mental health. It's just a completely taboo subject, and you grow up, you adopt those beliefs, you internalize it. So of course, as you get older, it's going to feel strange to not say it, but as you said, we need to, right? There's an incongruence there in light of how you're able to express and communicate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to sort of touch on what you just said about the way that we grow up and build things around us and build that sort of structure. So let's picture as a house, like we build the foundations. That's when we start, when we're toddlers, teens, and you start building those walls, and the more you sort of cement things down, the harder it is to sort of break through or to go through. But it's not impossible. Yeah. So what I'm trying to make a sort of an analogy to make it easier to visualize it, it's not impossible to break down a house. Therefore, it's not impossible for us to break down those core beliefs that we grew up with. It's not easy. It takes effort and a lot of work and dedication, but it is possible. And I think to tie it back in with the topic that we're discussing, it is about talking about your mental health, reaching out, learning exercises that can help you build a healthier mentality and build on your mental health in general. Because mental health is not just negative. It can be positive. It's just how we exercise it.
Yeah, I suppose it's just about feeling safe and open and expressing how you feel, no matter if it's good, no matter if it's bad. And I think a lot of people, I think it's good that you've mentioned that it can also be a good thing, because I think people can view it as a weakness. Yeah. They feel like, oh, if I talk about my mental health, this is me being vulnerable and I don't feel strong being able to do it, which I think especially men can internalize that sort of focus on it. But there's a lot of strength it takes in reaching out. Even when people reach out in therapy for the first time, I think it's great that even if people have attended a first session or made that first phone call, because I know it's not easy to. Yeah.
No, it isn't. And if you don't mind, maybe a bit personal, I think even myself as a counsellor, and I have training and, I had my degrees and everything else. Sorry. Had, a lot of experience throughout these years. even myself, sometimes I find it hard to reach out for that support. And I think it is, what we've been touching on, that internalized belief or that shame that we need to be strong. We need to, be able to carry on, and whatever we go through, if it's not physical, if there's nothing for us to, if it's not tangible, if we can't see it, then we should be able to walk through it and be able to navigate our life. And that's coming from someone that has that information and has a lot of, friends that are counselors too. So I can only imagine how hard it must be if we don't have that support network and that build of information around us. And, I know social media can be quite bad at times. But there's one good thing that is coming from it, is sort of trying to break that stigma of wanting to talk more, giving voices to communities, to to cultures, to break that stigma and to sort of reinvent themselves within mental health and how we can approach it.
Yeah, that's definitely one benefit of social media. It's started to open that conversation a lot more, and it started to challenge those beliefs that people might have in that's stopping them from speaking up. And I suppose, like, from your work, like as a counsellor, I appreciate you sharing then that even you yourself, I do as well. It's so hard opening up to people, and it's so hard being vulnerable, but it takes a lot of bravery to be able to actually do so. And I don't think we can completely blame ourselves for it. While there are improvements, I think that we do have a way to go about it, and that's why it's good to have these discussions, just to normalise the conversation a bit more. It's something that we hide a lot. There's a lot of shame in negative experiences that we go to, and when we feel bad, there's so much shame that we feel like we have to hide it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it does revolve about that shame and that belief that the more we are vulnerable, the weaker that we are, or that we are not good enough, or that we can't. It's sort of a lot of the expressions attached to exposing ourselves and our vulnerabilities has quite a negative connotation.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, really, as you were saying, being able to truly express how you're feeling and to open up to someone and show your most vulnerable sides, that is a hard thing to do, because first of all, I think you have to have that chat internally and accept that you've gone through, and that realization in itself can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So having the ability to understand how you're feeling, to be able to express that with words, with actions, however that may be, it's, I think, a sign of resilience. I think a lot of the times, for example, in my current work at the moment on the helpline, a lot of people call in, they've gone through so many difficult moments, and they truly believe that their resilience is gone, that they're not strong, that they're not good enough, that, it's a sign of weakness. But in reality, it takes a lot for you to be able to accept that something is wrong, and to be able to pick up the phone and make that first move to open up the door to receive more support, to receive counselling perhaps, or even sometimes just a call. Sometimes all you need is just to say it out loud, to hear it, to feel validated that our feelings are normal. And, we get a lot of those calls.
Yeah.
People that have been struggling for months with anxiety, thinking that there's something wrong with them, thinking that there's, they're not right and they're not fitting well within the world and our society. Once they're exposed what they've gone through, once they've talked out loud and they felt held and they felt like their feelings are valid, and, a lot of their responses are a natural response to the events that they've gone through. At the end of the call, you just hear that person, when you hear that deep breath, that like all of that stress is sort of lifted, and all it took was to say it out loud and to be able to process it with someone else, to feel that, it's okay. I know it's really cliche, but it is okay not to be okay, and to talk about it. Because if we don't, then how are we going to get to that better side or to a solution?
Exactly. And the way that you said it, then you can feel the weight has been lifted off them after they've said all of that. And, it's a problem shared as a problem halved.
Absolutely.
And it's about it's about having that courage and that bravery. And I think I like the point that you said then about you have to be able to acknowledge all the things that have happened in order to move forward. And one way to do it is by opening up, and is about talking about it, even if you feel like it's too much to talk on the phone to someone right now. Starting by having that reflection, like journaling, writing those things down can be helpful. Because I think when you've gone through certain things in your life, sometimes you might just try and skip a few pages and say, instead of talking about it and facing it and being vulnerable because I have all of these things that are stopping me, I'm just going to repress it, I'm going to push it down and keep going. But I think you really have to be able to process your pain in order to move forward. If you don't process your pain, you're never going to move forward. You push it down, but it keeps coming back to bite you, which is why I think it's so important to be open and to talk to people. And I'm wondering, like, with the clients that you've worked with, Libby, have you noticed like a difference in how being open has been able to help people, like the benefits it brings to them?
No, absolutely. And, to sort of, to touch on what you just sort of said briefly about, having to talk to process and to be able to navigate the emotions. I like to say that healing, or that journey that we talk about, like healing from, past events or traumas or experiences that we had. Healing doesn't mean that you will never think about the event, or that the event is erased and we'll forget about it and we'll have no feelings towards it. Healing is that ability to walk through what has happened, to be able to be held and acknowledge the experience and the impact that will have and has had in our lives. And healing is about being able to hold all of that information in a safe manner and to be able to navigate it through it. And one of the easiest ways to do so is by, as you said, sharing it. To be able to, I like to put it across, for example, when our thoughts are just in our head, they're just one after the other, one right after the other, and we don't really have a moment to sort of slow down and really think through what has happened. But when we have to, for example, write things down or talk to somebody else, we need to slow down, and we also hear it and process it again and really have that understanding of how it has impacted us. So when you asked, have I noticed that change when people come to me as clients on the helpline, face-to-face clients? Yeah, I believe I have. And it is such a wonderful sort of moment when that realization happens for that person, because usually, they come in and we sort of, some people are skeptical that it will work. Like, why is talking about it going to help me? But we foster sort of a good relationship. It's about sort of listening, holding, allowing them to reflect of how it feels and what it means to them too, but also how they can think of alternative ways of looking at that experience, and things that they can extract lessons, that they can take from it, but also positives that can reflect on who they are, how they feel, and who they want to become. So having that space on a regular basis allows that person to not only feel heard, but also listen to themselves. I think that's a big factor when it comes to mental health, is that we're so concerned and worried about the relationships with others, the, looking good, here, or sounding good at work, or fostering that relationship with a friend, a partner, whatever that may be. We take time to know them. We take time to understand what they like. We take time to understand what triggers them. But where is that, time and that, input with a relationship with yourself?
Yeah, I really love that point, because it's talking about it isn't just getting it off your shoulders, getting that weight lifted off. It's a space where you can have that self-discovery about yourself. It's all that reflection. It's like holding up a mirror to yourself in therapy when you're talking to yourself. Your therapist is holding up that mirror and you're like, okay, so I've gone through like an awful lot, but I'm able to reflect on what's happened, and that's helping me heal, and I'm learning more about myself. I know what triggers me, I know what doesn't trigger me, so it can open up so much more than it opens up so much more than just talking about it. I mean, talking about it opens up so much more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, funnily enough that you said about sort of that mirror, and I think that's like a really good sort of strategy, even though sometimes it's a metaphor. I think that self-discovery and building that empathy and also acknowledging what somebody has gone through. So, for example, if I'm sat here and I tell you I've gone through all of this in the last 6 months, year, you know, you'd be looking at me and you'd be listening and sort of offering that, you know, oh, you know, I'm sorry you've gone through that, and sort of that empathy, because you can see how it feels for me, you can hear me.
Yeah.
So holding up that mirror, we can actually, you know, do it rather than just being a metaphor. So stand in front of that mirror and
talk to yourself,
look at yourself, and say all those things, because it's important to also see how the words we internalize and the things we tell ourselves, those really carry a lot of weight, and we probably wouldn't say that we wouldn't say all of those negative things to someone's, you know, face. So sometimes seeing you and talking to yourself, as, you know, as strange as that may be as a concept, can really foster that relationship with you, and can really open up a space to build a bit of empathy as well, and compassion. Like self-compassion is so needed, especially when we're going through a lower point of our mental health.
Yeah, you can't be so hard on yourself, and if you're actually talking to yourself in that mirror, you might actually be a bit surprised at how you are talking to yourself, because sometimes I think when things live in our heads for too long, it goes round and round in that toxic spiral, and it's just about breaking it and literally physically talking to yourself in that mirror, watching yourself say those things. It can be like a reality check.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really believe how unempathetic I am to myself, and how horrible I am to myself at times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, I think it just ties back to what we've been saying. It's not only talking out loud to someone else, or it's not only, you know, being on the other side, listening to someone else and supporting them. It's about listening to yourself too. Sort of the responsibility, in essence, to, you know, exercise our mental health is within ourselves. However, we don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, sorry to keep going back to the physical health, but just like when we, for example, go to the gym or decide to join a type of sport, there's either equipment there, you know, or there is other people that can join in, and you have to sort of work as a team.
Yeah.
So it's the same with our mental health. We can exercise it in that way. So different tools are, you know, therapy. It can be about self-discovering, you know, self-help, either books or podcasts, or, you know, journaling, going through different exercises that can foster that understanding about what helps you, you know, what makes you tick or what triggers you. So we don't only have to access mental health support or therapy when we're in a crisis. Some people actually said that going to therapy when we feel at our best can help us tackle things that we've gone through in the past in a more clearer mind, in a mind where we're able to process it better, understand it better, because we're not so pressured with, you know, or overwhelmed with stresses or with things that are happening in the here and the now.
Yeah, because sometimes people go to therapy as they've hit rock bottom.
Yeah,
this is the last resort, I'm going now. But a really important point you made there is about prevention. You know, just because things are okay right now, but there's still areas of your life that you do want to know more about. Like we said, have that self-discovery. Yeah, because that's life. I think life, there's never a point in life where you're like, now I am who I am.
Yeah,
now I know the meaning of life. You know, that you're always going to be on that self-discovery at any point in your life, and it's about prevention. So when you start to know, like, not just having support when you've hit rock bottom, but saying to yourself, you know, I have been struggling, I've been feeling quite anxious at the moment. what helps relieve my anxiety? Oh, exercising helps relieve my anxiety, going for a run. Even though it's something physical, it's something that helps your mental health.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to build that awareness and have those toolbox of things that help you for the times when you know that you're struggling.
No, absolutely. And I'm a big fan on, building your toolkit or building the coping mechanism toolbox per se. Because with anything in life, we sometimes do need like different tools to help us, I don't know, for example, build a shelf or, change a tire. There are different tools that can fit for different situations. With mental health, it's the same. So it is about exploring that. And don't get me wrong, I know it's not easy to take that first step, and it can be quite overwhelming to walk that path too, because we feel a bit lost, like, well, where do I go? Like, what do I do? Speak to a friend or see your GP or, search for areas around you that offer sort of mental health support, or even, courses online that just help you understand a bit more about mental health and tools that we can utilize. Just like anything, when you start in that journey to understand something better, it can feel a bit like we're a bit unsure, we're a bit unstable on how we can access that information. But the more we do it, the pursuit of it can really break down all of those walls and allow us to be open to different ways of coping, to, different places to visit or go to if things go wrong, but also when things are right, because it's okay to exercise that. When we exercise our physical health, we don't always have to be in a bad physical health state. We can go to the gym or exercise to maintain that health, to keep our hearts, healthy, and to make sure that we can prevent, things from happening. And with mental health, is the same.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes time.
Absolutely.
I think that if you are on that journey, it's important not to expect too much of yourself. If you've gone your whole life with never sharing anything to anyone about anything, don't expect to be shouting it from the rooftops. On your very first day of trying, like you said, you could do the small things. Maybe, I think it's talking to your GP, talking to a therapist about it. Maybe not even going that far, but just talking to someone you trust, talking to a friend, and just letting them know, just being honest with them, saying that this is really hard for me to talk about right now, but I came to you because I trust you. And, I think it's also important not to expect too much from that person in the moment, because maybe it's something that they're also going through themselves, but maybe they can connect you to the right sort of person. They can offer that support, but it takes time. You can't expect too much of yourself in that time, but you can always look at those little steps to help you feel more comfortable, and talking to someone you trust can really help. Other things that can also be really helpful are learning more about mental health. If you're listening to this podcast even right now, I think that's a really good sign that you're open. You clicked on this for a reason, because you're open to having that conversation with other people. What other tips would you say, Debbie, do you think are good to help people feel more comfortable in having that conversation with others?
Well, I think we've covered sort of a lot so far, and I think something to reinforce is that knowledge is power. So, as we've been saying, the more we explore and the more we break down those walls, sort of the better for us. But something that I like to acknowledge as well is that, let's say in the eventuality that we do reach out, and the first person we reach out doesn't hold that space for us, as you were saying, it's okay. Sometimes people don't know how to hold that space, but don't be discouraged to try again. And if we put it into a bit of an analogy, let's say, throughout our lives, generally speaking, we have many relationships, friendships or romantic ones. And sometimes we have negative experiences, right? And that puts us off a little bit. And, we were a bit scared to reach out to other people and to build those bonds. But if we don't, we'll never discover that right fit for us. So it's the same within mental health. If we try something and it doesn't work, don't just shut off and think, I'm not going to exercise any type of support for my mental health. Reach out to someone else. Like, for example, if you ever gone to therapy and you've not had a good experience, that doesn't mean that every counsellor is going to sort of be the same. It's about finding that right fit, because within mental health and with counselling, we do often talk about the therapeutic relationship, and that is having the ability to connect. And we're all not going to be able to connect with everyone, and that's okay. So, like, it's more of an encouragement rather than, a different sort of tip on how to help with your mental health. Is more, don't be discouraged if the first time you try, it feels almost like a door has been shut or that people didn't hold that space for you.
And I think that's a really important point, because it sort of goes back into what you were saying at the start about internalising, because we've probably internalised it from negative experiences we've had with other people or beliefs from our parents or society and all those things. We've internalised negative beliefs, and then that makes it hard for us to reach out to other people because we have negative experiences with them. But it's saying that just because I've had a negative experience with this person, there's always going to be someone that cares, and there's always going to be someone out there that you connect with. It's just finding that right person, and it's about having the faith that you are going to find it, and the more that you put yourself out there, the more likely it is you're going to have that support there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it really, I do understand, and I really do empathise with everyone. I think that it is hard to reach out. It is hard to feel like maybe you'll be rejected, or that people might think you're odd or not good enough. It is hard to hold those thoughts and the feelings as well. However, I think the hardest thing to maybe hold and do is to live in a lie, and to live with beliefs that don't represent who you truly are.
Yeah.
Just because we're shutting off that ability to, or that possibility of reaching out for support within our mental health, to exercise our mental health. So it's sort of thinking of what's sort of the worst per se case scenario. Is it better for me to feel a bit of discomfort right here, right now, or to feel discomfort for the rest of my life?
Yeah. And it's about having, you're completely right. And I think it's about having that congruence within yourself.
Yeah.
So what you feel and what you say and what you do is in alignment with each other. And if something doesn't feel right, but you're putting that mask on every single day, that's not in alignment. And like you said, that's a lie. You're in congruence with that. And I think we want to work on having both how you feel on the inside and how you feel on the outside matching more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if we strip it back to sort of basics, as humans, I know we've evolved in many different ways, but if we're looking at, as I said, the basics, we are social beings.
Mm-hmm. We need to connect with other people.
Exactly. Some of us are more extroverted, are more confident in meeting a variety of different people, or reaching out and speaking out loud. Some of us are a bit more reserved, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that we don't need connection, and we don't need to feel like part of something or belonging, that we accepted. So creating and fostering a space where you have different sources of support to be able to tap into your basic needs is important. And mental health is certainly an important factor of our basic needs, to be able to function, to think clearly, to be able to process our feelings and emotions, and to process what has happened to us, so that we feel safer and feel like we're adequate, that we're able to do our day-to-day and live our day-to-day.
It's such a shame how this the shame and stigma of our mental health has stopped us from just intrinsically wanting to connect with other people. It's caused us to isolate ourselves even more and more. And I hope that anyone that has been listening today feels more confident to be able to reach out to anyone. And like we said, just taking that first step, not feeling discouraged if it doesn't go exactly how you were planning. Everyone else is also on this journey as well, probably, and figuring it out themselves.
Yeah.
But But thank you so much, Libby, for coming on today. I really enjoyed this chat with you. Is there any final words you'd like to tell anyone at all before?
I think just understanding that it is difficult and it's hard to go through the mental health sort of journey, but it's not impossible to create a balance. And life is lived in the ups and downs. If it was a straight line, it would be a flat line. So if you're going up and down, it means that we're still living and able to carry on and able to rediscover and reinvent ourselves. And I think that really does start with fostering a good relationship with your mental health.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Libby.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.